Today, on this Labor Day weekend, I wanted to talk with you about faith works. We could use the intonation or the inflection of faith works or faith works. Our mission statement is inviting all people to faith. Come and worship. Come and worship. Work. Go and work. On this Labor Day weekend, we're going to wrestle with this paradox. The paradox is salvation is free. You can't earn your salvation. You can't earn the approval of God. You can't merit the forgiveness of your sins. It's a gift. He invites you to come and lay down your stuff. It's a gift. But here's the paradox. Faith works. Faith goes to work. Because life is transformed by the presence of Jesus and by the grace of Jesus Christ. So 1882, the United States Congress and Senate established Labor Day to celebrate the machinists' union, carpenters, those who work in manufacturing. It's a way to celebrate the integrity of good, honest work, the engagement of our full potential to be productive in life. But in the church, we use the term vocation. So it shifts from just getting up and working hard to the sense that the Holy Spirit has designed you for God's purpose and invites you to engage in circles of life that God gives to you to work. And whatever work you do in the workplace or in your relationships at home or in your friendships are all the places where God calls you to live out your calling to be the followers of Jesus. Faith works. Let's start out by talking about the soul. The Greek word actually comes from what we would translate psyche, psyche. It means, and we would think of someone who helps us with our minds. Mine needs a lot of help. But our psyche, from the old sense or the composite sense of what the term means, has more to do with one's essence of life, the driving force that motivates, the spirit that makes you you. But in religious sense, out of the Old and New Testament, the soul also means the human being's capacity to know God. We get that from Genesis 2:7, where it says that God breathed into Adam and he became a living soul. So in our connectivity with the one who gave us life in the first place, we have life. Our soul thrives when it lives in harmony with the God who gives us life. There is an interdependency and an intimacy that means that our awareness of God and our receptivity to His Spirit is essential to our soul. So when the soul rebels against God and that essential intimacy is broken, then we become a lost soul. Like a fish out of water flopping on the dock, unable to breathe, we become someone who's going through the journey of life without that primary relationship of intimacy with the one who gave us life in the first place. God breathed into Adam and he became a living soul. So the more that in faith you and I are conscious of God's presence and say, bring it to me, Lord. I want you to fill me up with your Spirit. I want to live in the consciousness that I am your child, the more your soul thrives. So I need to be rescued. I no doubt you have watched the images from the Houston, Texas area. I think I heard that over 500,000 people were displaced from their homes, and thousands of people have needed and experienced heroic rescue from those who have been working hard to help those who are struggling. Have you ever been rescued in a context where you were stuck? Maybe your car was stuck in a blizzard. Maybe your tractor or combine was stuck in the low spot of your field. Maybe your boat wouldn't go on the water. Maybe you've been stuck in depression. But how do you feel when finally someone rescues you? What if you feel like financially you're going down and someone with significant means is willing to give you money so that you can refinance your comprehensive finances and move forward again? They rescue you. How do you feel? Don't you feel grateful? Love for the person that was so kind, devoted and loyal to the one who rescued you? This summer, when we were on vacation up at Big Wolf Lake, the Mississippi River runs through that lake, and there's a part of the river that connects to a little lake called Anderson, where it's tall, marshy reeds on both banks of that river. Well, we're driving upriver to this little Anderson Lake, and in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere, there's a little pug dog swimming in the river. I don't know how long he's been swimming, but he's been swimming a long time. And we pull the boat over to the side of the bank, and zip, right to our boat he comes. He needed to be rescued. So I took him to this spot where on dry land, I think the stairs to where that cabin was about 5 stories. My heart was thumping when I got to the top. And I put the dog down, and he trotted down the sand road like nothing ever happened. But that dog was rescued. Spiritually, again, we're lost souls. The Bible teaches us that we're disconnected from the God who gave us life in our human rebellion, and we need to be rescued by Jesus Christ. So in this whole dialogue between Jesus and his disciples, where Peter says, "You're the Christ," he says, "You're right, Peter. I'm going to go to Jerusalem. They're going to beat me up. They're going to put me on a cross. I'm going to die on that cross, and then I'm going to be raised from the dead. You and I have been rescued." Is there anything you can do to add to what Jesus has done for you to rescue you? No, nothing. But here's again the point I want you to get. Jesus then says, "Come follow me." We're right at the heart of the call of Jesus to discipleship. He says, "Deny yourself, take up the cross, and follow me." So I want to say to you that in the spiritual faith life that we all have in relationship to God, that discipleship is a daily conscious commitment of devotion to follow Jesus. So salvation is a gift. Grace is free. You can't earn it. But still today, if you open your spiritual ears, Jesus is saying, "Will you follow me?" And our response to his call to discipleship is a conscious commitment of devotion to follow. Do you hear him? He's still calling his people to follow. Peter responds in a typical fashion that we expect from Peter. We all love Peter because we relate so easily to him. What's the flaw in Peter's thinking? Well, in the big picture, all of the people of Peter's time thought of a Messiah who was coming for 3 major areas. One was prosperity, wealth. The second was deliverance, an overthrow of political power. The third was peace, that God would give them victory over all their enemies. And so if he's just finished saying, "I get it, Jesus, you're the Messiah," his full load of expectations of political peace, power, wealth, all are connected to Jesus as Messiah. So when Jesus says, that's right, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, they're going to kill me, his natural reaction is to say, God forbid. So in the big picture, Peter is saying, don't let it happen. You're the Messiah. All those promises have to get fulfilled through you. But on a personal level, he's saying, hey, if he dies, I don't get to ride to the top. You understand that? And how many times does Laaveg in his faith and prayer life pray exclusively like Peter? The only way I want to connect to Jesus Christ is for him to fix my physical and relational life in this world so that I got a comfortable, cushy life. That's all I ask Jesus for. But if he calls me to follow, deny myself, pick up a cross, obey him no matter what the cost, I balk at that. Leonard Sweet, theologian, says, this is our jacuzzi Jesus. We all want an experiential encounter with Jesus that leaves us relaxed, warm, and bubbly, yet feeling fit and trim when we get out. On August 2003, Church of the Cross in Midtown Manhattan, New York City, was broken into twice. The first time they broke into the church, they took the money box. The second time they broke into the church, they took something that the writer said is way more precious. It was a 5-foot statue of Jesus. Only the unique thing was, as they took the statue, they broke him off the cross and left the cross. So the caretaker of the church, a man named David St. James, expressed bewilderment. He said, they decided that they wanted to take Jesus and leave the cross. We figure, if you're going to take Jesus, you have to take the cross. So how does faith work? Let's talk about that a little bit. Jesus, you remember, said, greater love has no one than this, than that they laid down their life for their friends. Well, Jesus, of course, laid down his life so that we can lay down our stuff, our burdens. I talked to a man at Ingham Lake Bible Camp last Sunday who's been a believer in Christ and a churchman for 40 years, faithfully serving, often serving at Ingham Lake. He talks about how listening to a message by Pastor Scott Meyer, who many of you know, that in a Via de Cristo weekend, he heard and understood a new aspect of trusting Jesus that he never fully understand. He said, all my life, he said, I believe that Jesus saves and forgives me, but he said, in my perfectionism mind, all the time, I replayed my whole life journey, and I kept thinking about all the major moments of regret. It took all my spiritual joy, and I was still driven to try and perfect my life. Pastor Meyer told in a message a story of another guy who had a similar problem with perfectionism, who said, if that's the way you understand faith, but you're still living, laboring under all your regrets and all your failures, he said, then Jesus Christ died in vain, because Jesus Christ died to forgive you and make you new. The first faith work is to lay down your burdens. Stop carrying it. You don't have to carry that guilt or that shame or those grudges anymore. Lay it down. Deny yourself. Here's where Laaveg, the sinner, needs to be put to death. Is that easy? I am a self-centered egotist. Did you know that about me? Many of you do know that. Thank you. And also with you. So I am prone to think too much of myself. I am prone to think first of myself and only secondarily of others. I am prone to think life is up to me. I live by self-reliance. Jesus says self-reliance will get you nowhere. You are totally dependent upon me. Paul wrote it this way in Galatians 2. He said, I'm crucified with Christ. I no longer live. Jesus Christ lives in me. Maybe another way to say it, in other words, to deny myself is to lose myself in the love of Jesus Christ. I get swallowed up as I am immersed into a grace that is greater than all my selfishness. But I stop thinking that I'm going to do it by myself. In that self-denial is something that Dr. Joseph Stoll, a well-known preacher and scholar and author, he says, all of us have a drop the nets moment in relation to following Jesus. He said when Jesus called his disciples who were fishermen, he said the narrative of the story doesn't just say Jesus called them to follow and from then on they followed. It includes this little phrase, and they left their nets. They dropped their nets. They couldn't hang on to those long, extended catch nets and still follow Jesus, could they? To go into a new life, they had to drop the nets. Stoll says, in every Christian's life, in every believer, every disciple's life, there's a drop your nets moment where you realize you got to let go of all that was past in order to fully devoted of heart follow Jesus Christ. So what are your nets? What do you have a hard time letting go of so that you can hear the voice to follow Jesus? So in most of our lives, there's these series of drop the nets moments. Moments where Jesus reveals himself to us in a way that is unmistakable, and then we surrender yet again. Now, many of you know enough of my story to remember that, like Ruth Graham once said, you might as well ask me when I fell in love with my parents. I've always known and loved Jesus Christ. But you also know that in the summer after my 8th grade confirmation year at Bible camp with the Lutheran Youth Encounter Group, I realized the privilege of a relationship, and I fell in love with Jesus. But then, as we all are, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. In my senior year of high school, I came home from a night out, and I was convicted of the hypocrisy or the dualism of my life. That I said I believed one thing, but the manner with which I lived had nothing to do with the confession of my faith. And I knelt beside my bed, and I asked Jesus Christ to renew me in his love again. You see, in every one of our lives, there's going to be those drop the net moments where unmistakably you know that Jesus is calling you. And you surrender. I'll follow. One more aspect to this denial of self, which is with a curiosity and an openness to change, I seek Jesus. One of the most saintly believers in any of the churches that I've served in my lifetime is a man from Forest City, Iowa named Everett Shaw. Devoted man, lovely man, amazing man. Long after I left Forest City as a pastor, I had a chance to have coffee with Everett one day, and I asked him, what's the secret to your vital connection with Jesus? You know what he said? He said, and he's over 90 now, he said, before I even put my feet on the floor, I reach for my Bible, I read some of my key promises that are favorites, and I tell Jesus again that I belong to him. And will he open my eyes to see him at work and what he wants me to do today? So as I deny myself, the work of faith is to seek Jesus in our life. Pick up the cross. What does that mean? I love what John MacArthur in his preaching, Grace to You says, he says, you know, in the time of the disciples, there were hundreds of people that were executed almost daily in the Holy Roman Empire, in the Roman Empire. And he said there was a period after the revolt following the death of Herod the Great when under Roman proconsul Varus, 2,000 Jews were crucified. It is estimated by historians that in the time of Jesus, over 30,000 people were crucified along the roads of the Roman Empire. So when Jesus said this phrase to his disciples, take up your cross, they had that powerful imagery of condemned people dragging a crossbeam down whatever road they were on, that instrument which would be the execution tool for their own martyrdom was what the disciples were thinking about. Jesus says, pick up your cross. Jesus asks us to be his servants, and like Eric was talking about with the kids, that we pattern our lives after the lordship of Jesus, that we pick up the cross to serve others in love. I'd like to suggest to you today that the first place that you would hear Jesus call to serve others in love would be with the people who you live closest to. Your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, the people you work with. You might say to me, yeah, but you don't know the person I work with. Jesus doesn't say, serve others in love, wait until you have this warm rush of affection and then treat them kindly. Jesus says, you love them. That'll be a sacrifice. That'll sometimes be messy. That'll sometimes be inconvenient. Sometimes Laaveg doesn't want to. But Jesus says, come on, you follow me. Pick up your cross and love people in my name. Faith works. It also means that I identify with Jesus in a public way, regardless of what the rest of the world thinks. Do you ever struggle with that? I proudly say I belong to Jesus Christ. I don't care what you think of me. My life belongs to Jesus Christ. Lastly, Jesus says, you follow me. Philip Yancey, in a book, Soul Survivor, that I've been reading this week, tells about the life of Henry Nouwen in part of it. Henry Nouwen, a famous theologian, author, Roman Catholic scholar, taught at Harvard University. He flew all over the world giving speaking engagements. He was world famous. And then God called him to Peru to work as the resident priest in an orphanage. He said the children just crawled all over me, so starved for affection, and I realized the truth was I wanted life to go by my plans. I wanted to continue to embrace my fame. I wanted to live my life by what I wanted to have done. He said, I learned that when I bring Jesus to them, I also discover how I can love Jesus in them. He went from there to serving in an AIDS clinic in San Francisco. And eventually he ended up at a Toronto home for mentally and physically handicapped children called Daybreak. There, among his responsibilities as the priest, he was to take charge of a young, severely handicapped boy named Adam. I just want to read for you what he says about caring for Adam. Because in this moment of caring for Adam, he discovers the heart of Father God. He says, it takes me an hour and a half to wake Adam up, give him his medication, carry him to his bath, wash him, shave him, clean his teeth, dress him, walk him to the kitchen, give him breakfast, put him in his wheelchair, a place where he spends most of his day. He never laughs or cries. Only occasionally does he make eye contact. His back is distorted. His arm and leg movements are twisted. He suffers from severe epilepsy and despite heavy medication has many grand mal seizures. Sometimes as he grows rigid, he utters a howling groan. And on a few occasions I've seen a tear roll down his cheek. Then he says, but in time I learned to love Adam, truly love him. And in the process, I learned what it must be like for God to love us. Spiritually uncoordinated, unable to respond except in inarticulate grunts and groans. Now and says, all my life I've heard two voices, one that called me to succeed and achieve, and the second voice was simply to rest in the truth that I am the beloved of God. You can't earn your relationship with God. You just float in His grace. He's already taken care of it. He's gone to the cross. He proclaims to you the full forgiveness of all your sins. But make no mistake about it, when you're going to go on a trip, you say goodbye, you pick up your bags, and you go. So for us, we say, goodbye, self. I pick up the cross of Christ, and I follow the Lord Jesus.